Hey kids, welcome to another Glenn in drum session here. Today we are going back in my history of music that I created with some other great local musicians. We're going back to the mid 90s. Mid 90s were a popular time for us musicians. We played so much different music in different bands. It was an amazing time. I could play a weekend doing top 40, then do an odd spin-off show doing all original music, and then doing a full week the next week doing all full instrumental music live in a prog rock situation, and still have people in the bar all those times. It just was an amazing time. I always shoot back to it because the times have changed. Nothing's like that anymore. For 10 years, maybe even pushing it to 12, they were fantastic times. So we were revisiting a band called Rainhorses. This album was the second album by the band called Rainhorses. The mastermind behind this is a local musician named Chris Belcito, great lyricist, good songwriter. Like his lyrics on here are great. And he's done a lot of solo stuff and whatnot. Rainhorses was born, I think, around 1993. I was not in the band at that time. I was in the second version. The band started off as pure acoustic, with percussion, real percussion pieces, congas, that kind of thing. They did have a drummer that played on some, but the songs did not incorporate drums on every piece of work. So there would be other percussion pieces. So they ran into, well, they put out an album, a self-titled album, did tons of local gigs. I think they did a couple of out-of-town festivals. But my knowledge of them was strictly that I knew some of the people in the band. I would go see them. When they were recording the first album, I helped them out a bit for some of the drum sound and techie things. So my name is on the first album. So I had a connection with the band for quite a while. Then they lost a rehearsal spot, so I rented my basement out to them once a week, $100 a month. They could use my PA to practice. And eventually their drummer decided, he fell in love and moved on with a different career and stuff. So I ended up filling in for them in the basement jams just to help out. And then I think they had a change in bass players, and I ended up joining along with the bass player, which is George Ravlich. Everybody knows him from Crank Sound Company, but he was definitely a local legend for bass. So we ended up joining with our old friend Ryan Oya on guitar. We had already been in tons of bands together, and we joined with Chris to create the next stage of Rainhorses. I knew going into this, like, everybody kind of pigeonholed me as a metal drummer, which I was not. I was not a fan of heavy metal music, to be honest. I was into prog rock, I like some of the new wave stuff. I love 60s music. I love jazz. But I was always open to a new adventure, so even though Rainhorses was all acoustic, that didn't deter me from trying it out. And the same with the bass player. The bass player was right into like, and I think they call it the industrial metal and stuff like that. But he had a wide vocabulary too. He would play different things, blues, and him and I were actually in a blues rock band at the time of Rainhorses. Anyways, cut it short. We knew going in that, at least George and I, we did not want to become the norm of acoustic bands. There was something about the acoustic bands, the rhythm sections were just basically timekeepers, and there wasn't enough excitement created that would turn me on to going into buying a bunch of folk albums. They were basically folk. Rainhorses was a folk rock theme. So, but we wanted to try stuff that played well with the acoustic guitars, but changed the whole rhythmic dynamic at that time. And I'm not making it sound like it's like a giant step. These changes were subtle, maybe a bit more complicated than what was going on, a little more syncopation, and more abstract sounds in there. Like acoustic bands, you would hear, shakers and congas and stuff like that, but I kind of wanted to go more modern. Like I'm right into cymbal effects, piggyback cymbals, and like stacking cymbals on top of cymbals, drilling holes in cymbals, making weird sounds with them, And that's what we were shooting for, the bass player and I, when we went into this band. And we tried very hard on this album to just make the rhythms different than most folk rock albums. I don't know if that makes sense. So you'll find stuff even with brushes on this, but a lot of kick drum and bass guitar accents, lots of mini to little notes, just to add some extra notes while the guitars were just doing strumming. Our lead guitar player did a lot of intricate parts, so sometimes we would accent with that. But we tried not to overpower the strumming Chris was doing on rhythm guitar, because his vocal his vocal and the rhythm guitar were the main language. So we just kind of dusted things around that. Sometimes we might have oversaturated with the parts. But I listened to the whole album last night. I've been keeping up the Rainhorse music and the websites for years. And while this band is long forgotten, some people that did see the band have fond memories of it and our live shows. But for the majority of my local city, they don't remember the Rainhorses, even though we did shows opening for Great Big Sea and Blackie and the Rodeo Kings, if I remember that right, and even Colin James. It's just one of those deals. It was that one of those deals where things were frozen in time, and Rainhorses just didn't carry over into the later 2000s, But I try and keep it going. I have super fond memories of this. This basement is where we created a lot of this music, music that's not been recorded yet. only in demo form. Also, we had a third EP thing that we did in the 1997, I believe. So those, those recordings were done good, and we were happy with them. We did play them live. We did them at a local festival here called Cornfest, which was a big deal for us. And we also did one in Sudbury, the Northern Lights Festival, where, if I remember right, we did play some of the newer ideas that we were going to do on the third recording. The band broke up for a number of reasons. Everybody's lives really ran different courses in the band. When we were down here musically, we were all together mentally. It was an interesting and fun time. Creative ideas flowed constantly. I have basement recordings, tons of them, with us coming up with parts. Our practices normally started with jam warm-ups, where the ideas would just flow. Chris would start rhyming off lyrics that either made up on the spot, or he may have come up with something earlier on in the week, and we would just try it. He would just play a few bars of it and sing, and we would just join in. So there are tons of great recordings of material that hasn't seen the light of day and probably never will. But I'm just saying, at the time down here, that band just gelled. There was an aura about that band that I never had with any other band. And I loved it. And most of the stuff was created playing this giant kit. And it wasn't like a double bass barrage. It wasn't like Dream Theater. I utilized this drum set to be acoustic guitar friendly for the most part, but with a slight twist. As for live, we did, like I say, some high profile gigs, and we did some local stuff, but everybody's mindset was in a different place. And those places were so far from center that it just wasn't going to go anywhere. Whether it be careers, two of the guys had amazing careers going. I was full bore music. The bass player, he was kind of in a different zone also. It just wasn't going to work. So the band just folded. We had a tragedy also with our guitar player's father. That fact right there changed everything. It was a different world at that point on, and there was no going back to the way it was. Now heartbreak brings a totally different atmosphere to friendships, and you just can't just ignore it. So that was a factor also. So while we had a lot of fun, we had some great luck, we had some excellent times. In my opinion, we wrote some really cool music for the time. We're talking 30 years, okay? And that can't be changed. That's in our memories, and those that loved Rainhorses, because we did have a great crowd of people following us. It's just a point in time, just frozen there. And so what I'm going to do is, I haven't played these songs on drums in 30 years. In my Roland Pad 11, which is a module with 8 pads on it, there's also some pads that I made, homemade pads down here. This bar right here is one. There's also another pad on this side. All these pads were part of the percussion system that I used with Rainhorses. I did not want to bring bongos, congas, and all this percussion stuff along with the drum set. I would have needed a truck just for all that stuff. So I made a point to tell the band I'm going to go electronic, still try and maintain those percussion type sounds, but I want to keep it in one, basically one small package and one brain that I could program and utilize that in a live situation that would just save some grief. And it worked fine, except for one show we did at the Northern Lights Festival where one of the triggers was oversensitive, so because we're playing at a greater volume it would start acting up. So I just unplugged it and went with a different sound, but I mean, you wouldn't know anyways. So the sounds are still in this module. I didn't have the heart to erase them because it's part of my history. I still use this pad for my own original work, and you can program the libraries in here. So Rainhorse sounds are still in this module. I'm going to try and remember how to play these songs. When we played live, this drum set didn't go with me. I had a smaller kit when I played live. Normally it's an 810 and a 16-inch floor and single kick, the Pad 11, and some tambourines and some bells and stuff. But most of it was electronic based. It also made it easier because I sing a lot of the backups on the Rainhorse stuff. So having not to go around bongos and congas and all this while I'm singing, it just made things simpler. So I'm going to try and place a couple of these songs on here, revisit them. I'm going to go over them and do separate videos. This is just like the warm-up video to let you know what I'm doing. So I might do 2-3 songs off here. And so I make out memory's sake. On the album itself, when we recorded it, I know the studio was very minimal that we recorded this in. So they were a little shy on channels and on mics. As you can, I don't know if you can tell from the camera, but this area right here, with tambourines, we've got spoke hi-hats, and this kind of stuff. They didn't have enough mics to go and get all this stuff so you could hear it clear on the recordings, but you can hear it. But when we played live, we definitely made sure all that stuff was mic'd up really well. But I'm going to try and see if I remember how to play some of this stuff. For the most part, I remember about 75% of it. It's a different kind of playing for me. I don't play like this too much anymore. I miss it because it was definitely a fun time, but it's not something I can use in other music. But I'm going to try. It's really simple, but a little bit busy. And just for my own love of this music that we created, I'm doing this. I'm nostalgic. Always have been. I always remember my past, good, bad, the ugly. And this being a good time back in the mid-90s, towards the end of the 90s, I'm proud of this product and band and the time that we had. So I'm going to see if I can redo the drumming and see if I don't know, I definitely won't have the same feel, but we'll give it a shot. So that's coming soon. I'm making separate videos for that. This is just the kind of the setup. All right, the setup to fail, we'll say. Okay, thanks for watching.